Hey everyone, I'm Mike Henry, and I'd like to welcome you to another guest demo done by Renato Roldán, this one for The Mandalorian and the Child. A little bit ago, Renato did this awesome piece in collaboration with a friend of his for The Mandalorian and the Child, and I think it's pretty exciting to see him talk through his process here, so let's get it started.
Bum 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 bum. Hey buddies, here is Renato 3XL. I hope that singing is not copyright infringement and Lucas won't come after me for this video. And here I am again on the channel of my friends Transis to give you a little bit of my workflow for this illustration, obviously based on the Mandalorian, the great series about Star Wars. First of all, and as always, sorry for my English, I'm not an English speaker and I do my best, so I hope everything could be understandable, and sorry if I do some mistakes. I'll do my best, but yeah, here we are. So I'm going to explain a little bit the process that I follow for this image. So as always, for this image I start with a sketch. In this case, the sketch wasn't mine, was from one of my friends, that is Seagull Studio. I have done several collaborations already, and this is my second one with him, and I have to say that working in a team and having just to focus on some aspects of the production is so much easier, because you don't have to think about form and shape or whatever. You just have to do your part of the job, and it's quite interesting. So for this one, my idea was to go with very contrasted lines. As you can see, there are thick lines and thin lines, and I try to work as much as I can with gesture drawing strokes. I used a brush that it was my first time. I was trying just to experiment a little bit with what Procreate has, and it's called Inca. You can find it in the inking folder, so it's really easy. You don't have to buy anything, it's already there, and the result was quite good. I really like it, how it looked, and the style that I wanted to give to this image was a little bit like Mignola, so it's black shadows and then a little bit of color, and I wanted to do it with a high contrast. But as you can see, for the final image I didn't went that way. So I like to start something and then change my mind and start experimenting. That is when the fun comes. So once I had the line, I want to start putting some color in it. So here you can see that I'm trying to just block really fast the basic colors of the character. I didn't want to go so far because I put each one of the colors in one layer, and what I do at the end is I try to balance them just to not have something that is really contrasted if I don't want to, or the saturation is wrong. So I try to put everything in layers and then work a little bit on them to fine-tuning those colors. So as I said, this is an exercise. I don't really know where I want to go, but I try to find my way. This is the way during my process of doing the image. I knew I wanted to do something really impactful. I usually go for a cartoony way when I want to work on images, but here I tried something totally different. As you can see, now I'm adding a little bit of detail to the armor. I wanted to really feel like the Beskar armor, so I tried to replicate that shine effect. Here for the shading, I'm using a brush that is called Merced. or I think it's Merced the cartoonist. I bought it, and it really worked for me. It's one of the brushes that comes with a pack of Merced brushes, and I think it works really well. Here I'm adding a little bit of light to the helmet for having that shine effect. It's a layer on top of the composition with probably add effect or add mode of add mode. So you can see here that everything that I'm drawing shines. I like to add those small details, like when you are painting a miniature, that on the edges you have like a thin stroke of a lighter color that adds a little bit of detail, and also it marks the edges of the figure, so it's a nice touch. I also like to add scratches to almost everything. That's one of my manias, and I end up putting scratches all around. But in this case, as I'm painting an armor that is supposed to be worn for several years, and especially in battle, add those scratches makes sense. But I have to admit that basically I am obsessed with scratching everything. Now I'm starting to paint the gun. The gun is basically also made of metal, and I try to use the same technique, just have a base color and then some dark strokes and light strokes that replicate a little bit what metal shines and reflects from the real world. As I said, I use lots of layers, and basically when I have my base color layer, I start to add darker tones for the first time. So I use one layer to do like an occlusion pass, even if it's not really an occlusion pass. I use that for the main areas that are in contact, or things that are in a depth that the light doesn't light them up so much, just to have more visibility on the shape of the things and on the volume especially. Here you can see that I'm trying to do that with the pants and the boots. I'm not putting shadows in it. I'm just trying to get that volume out of it with a little bit of work on that occlusion, for saying it in a way, layer. And then it's time to light up. So it's basically having another layer with a base color. I usually don't change so much colors. I like to paint shadows in a very desaturated purple or blue, sometimes red if I want to do something warmer. And for lighting, it's basically yellow or a really pale yellow, like basically white, for the main light to give volume to everything. So as you can see here, I'm just pointing out some minor details on the surface to do those color ramps that push that volume on the character. I really like the way Baby Yoda end up in my drawing, because I wanted him to be cute and also have that texture or that sense of skin that the puppet has, and I think it's totally amazing. Now, as you can see, I'm working on the line art. um, Sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't, but in this case I think I wanted to break that idea that I have in mind for the first time, that was to put big strokes, big black strokes, and I try to blend them a little bit. So I pick up the basic color that I had behind it, like green in the Baby Yoda face or something like this, and then color that line in a darker color of that, basically just to blend it a little bit and not have those huge strokes. Here you can see that I'm adding more and more layers of diffuse light to add values to those elements that I think are important, and also to add another depth of layer depth, to all the colors. I basically thought that even I have done something, in my opinion, cool for the Beskar. I thought that Beskar was more wider or more brighter that I had, so I changed the base color. That's why I do everything in layers, because now I can just select the gray layer that I have and then change the values to light them up or do it darker if needed. Here you can see that I have created another layer on top of it, adding yellow to the image. I try to do a rim light. This is something that I use a lot, the rim lights. It's something that I really like because they pop up a lot the silhouette of the characters. And as I had the idea to do this character in a desert or something like this, like in the series, I thought that light coming from behind would be dramatic and will add a lot of character to the both of them. But in this case, as the armor is white, I thought it burns a lot, and I end up removing the part on the Beskar or having it really light with low transparency. But as you can see, I kept the part of the Baby Yoda, but because I thought that, or my intention in this case was to create a really greasy feeling to the skin. I wanted to have that subsurface scattering touch, so I kept that. Now I'm adding a little bit more of work into the light, and here comes the magic. This is why looking to reference is so important. I try to match what Beskar looked like, and I end up finding that as it's reflective, it reflects almost everything. It's like a mirror. So I thought, okay, so if up is the sky, then up will be blue, and that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm painting blue almost everything that is Beskar to have that reflection, and it works perfectly for me. It was perfect. It was a nice touch to it. I really think that sells the Beskar and the metal look like, and then I add that blue to all the elements. In the Beskar it was like pure blue, and for example in the skin of Baby Yoda is not that hard, is a little bit more diffuse, and the opacity was bigger than in the Beskar because his skin is not as reflective as as the metal, and it's basically that the sky lights the head too. So bits and pieces, everything is light up from above. This was a huge discovery for me, and it's something that I'm using a lot now. Here I'm trying different modes, but at the end I left the skin and all the clothes of the Mandalorian a little bit more transparent than the armor itself. And also thinking about reflection, I thought, okay, if the armor is reflecting the sky, the armor should reflect the ground. So I painted some brown stuff in the Beskar to make it obvious that the ground that he's standing is being reflected, and it also lights up the character from below, because if you have a strong light from above, it reacts with the terrain, and the terrain lights up everything from below, and that's basically how light works. It bounces and it's all around. If not, it would be like a direct light in a 3D program, that is just one directional, unidirectional. So here you can start seeing that with all those lights bouncing and lighting the characters from different angles, it adds a lot of volume to the characters, and I think this is something good. You have to be aware that not everything should be lighted. You have to light stuff with a little bit of sensibility. I don't mean you should fake everything, but sometimes faking is good, so keep that in mind. Not everything should be as important as the main focus of your piece. So in this case, for me, the most important part was the face of both characters, and that's where the most amount of detail and the brighter lights would be, and the rest is just helping to sell the idea of that character integrated into a background. Here I'm probably doing some not good stuff in a way that I'm not taking into account where the character is standing, and just thinking that it's in a desert or in the far west, something like this. So I'm trying to light him up without having that reference of where the character is, and that's probably a mistake. So don't do that. Just sketch a little bit where the character is. So, and even if it's a huge mass of color or something like this, it will help you a lot. So more and more detail, more and more bounce light. If you follow me, you will know that I'm not so used to do this kind of more, not realistic, but more elaborated rendering. But it was a really fun exercise and a really fun thing to do. So I'm probably going to do this sooner or later in another piece. I like to play a lot with the modes to find the right balance between transparency and the way it looks. Here you can see that I'm trying to replicate that subsurface scattering effect that happens when something has some translucency to it, and especially in the ears, in the nose sometimes. It adds a lot of coolness to the characters. It's a really cool effect, and I remember really long ago when I was studying animation, that was something that was really difficult to do, and now everything has it. So look at that face. That baby just really happy. And here comes the background. This is what I told you. I didn't think so much about where to put the character, and I started to mess around. And as I said before, having a reference is so important. So for this, I just took some pictures from the desert, the ones that looked to me interesting, and tried to understand how light works in that environment and how light lights up all the terrain, because here's a big chunk of terrain that I have to paint, and light works differently in the foreground than in the background, than in the ground that is far away. So I have to find a way to explain and to sell the idea of depth. And as you can see, I'm always using the same brush. I didn't use so much brushes. I have my own collection that I have been gathering from different ones that I have been buying in Gumroad, and basically those are the ones that I use a lot. And as I said, this is the Merced the cartoonist. First of all, flats, and then some shadows, then darker shadows and more darker shadows, and a little bit of light here and there, because at the end everything should be light up and have value and add depth to the story of the image. And for me, here comes the fun part, because when I have the image like this, it's like, okay, I have like everything I wanted to do, and now it's time to play. It's time to add, like here, some smoke or some dust in the distance, and I like to do shapes and then play with liquify and with some effects. I like to light up. Here you can see it's a big chunk of yellow, and just tweak a little bit the mode, tweak a little bit the transparency, add some different touches to it to add that variety inside of the image, because if not, it will be so flat, and in this case I didn't want to be flat. As you can see, this is basically my process, and I tried to explain it the best I can. I'm so sorry for all the nonsense that I have been saying for around 20 minutes, more than 20 minutes. And I hope this is helpful for you. If it is, I will do more. If it's not, so I will keep it for me. So thank you so much for you to being around and supporting my stuff. And also thanks to Mark Henry, It's a Transit, for giving me the opportunity again to do a voiceover video. And see you next time.
I'd like to thank Renato for doing another Procreate demo for us. I'd also like to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you'd like to check out Renato's work, here are some links for you. And lastly, if you're looking for me on the internet, these are the places where you can find me.